Hello.
Quit beating on that desk.
Hello. Okay, it's almost 7:30, so it is time to start. My name's Sam Poindexter, NI4TG. We're going to have a great year. Welcome to the January meeting with all the 90th anniversary events and everything else we've got going on. It's going to be a wild year, so buckle your seatbelts. We'll go around and introduce ourselves. We'll start right here with Doc.
WB4DOC, Doc.
Doug, W4STH.
Are you sure?
You can hit him, Doug.
W1
Don, WS4 and C.
Evening, KG4JW.
John, and I just passed my technician.
All right. Welcome.
Jeff, and I'm the new kid on the block.
All right, welcome.
Right?
Nick, KN4UOL.
Jerry, K4GW.
Joe, KN4YCI.
And Joe just passed his extra tonight.
By the way, he made 100%.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I stole your thunder, but
We know who to ask now.
that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Henry?
Henry, W4HHS.
Keith, KA4JAH. Mark, KX4PZ.
I'm Chris, W4HJ. I'm the other Doug. New, actually. I moved here 7 months ago from Salisbury.
All right.
Hey.
W4DCS.
Good stuff.
I'm Steve, K2MLN.
Jeff, AC4YN.
Dave, WA4MKK.
Bill, W2SL.
Bill, W4EXT.
Steve, W3SAW, we call.
George, N4RO2. Gene, WB4MSG. And some people's asked me about the 160 antenna, like Charlie, W4TMR, had come up with. And so I brought some drawings of it if anybody's interested. I got a few copies.
Okay, thank you.
Neil, WD4LSS.
Steve, WA3RTC.
Van, KC4WSK.
Harold, N4HER.
Jim, KN4U,
Wayne, I'm just a guest of Jim.
All right.
Welcome.
Hey.
David, W4OIL.
John, K1PPE.
I guess it's up to me. Harlan, W1HRC.
You sure?
Mary,
No.
KM4WPL.
Bob, W3AVB.
KJ4FIN, Jim. Ron, W4UDB. Jim, KG4SJ. Ken, K2KXK.
Jim, WA4NOZ.
Mike, W4MAV. And Mark, KM14K.
Okay. And I see Bobby's here, AA9AU. All right.
Pedro and
Oh, yeah, and Pedro's in the back, running the equipment. And we appreciate Pedro doing that. He does a good job. I just have a couple of announcements this evening. February's meeting, the presentation will be by Stuart Smalkin, WA5EYI. He's from the Asheville Radio Museum. And also understand Brian Harrison will be here with some company.
Yeah.
And so February is going to be a big meeting. Dues are now due at the new rate. You can pay Stacy, pay your dues, and you can also pay them online with PayPal.me. That information is on the website. I did want to mention we've got some folks out sick tonight in the club. David Schoaf, he's supposed to be watching from home. David, if you're there, hello. David has had some bronchitis and has been in the hospital, but he hopes to be at the business meeting Monday. Terry, AK4D, is having some more chemo treatments, and he can't be around people because of his compromised immune system. And Kent, our treasurer, is not here tonight. Kent had some surgery last Monday, and he was in the hospital all week, but he's doing better now and recovering. So we wish these guys a speedy recovery, and please think of them. You know, the Hamfest review. We had light misting rain all day, and so we didn't have but a couple of tailgaters.
They ended up coming inside.
Yeah, and a couple of the major vendor wasn't there, but in spite of everything, we grossed about $800, and after expenses, I think we're going to make probably about $600. I think we sold 150 tickets, which was up a little bit from October, but the tailgate and table revenue was down a little bit. Still, I'd say it was a success, and saw a lot of you there. Didn't see all of you, but you missed. We had some unique equipment I saw, so you missed some. Kim Kaiser, would you come up here a minute? Just 1 minute. Just come up here a minute. I'm going to embarrass Ken for a minute, and it's not my intention to do so. Ken was not at the Christmas dinner, and so Ken missed this. But Ken approached the board of directors last year and wanted to install remote hams on our club station equipment, and he did. Ken's worked really hard on this. And if you're not familiar with remote hams, you can use your Android phone and be at the beach, and you can use the club's L-Craft transceiver back here. And we're getting ready to add the beam on there, so you can turn the beam, point the beam toward Europe or whatever. But anyway, Ken has mapped our internet back there and done quite a bit for us this year. And in recognition of that, we wanted to present you with the W4NC MVP Award for 2019.
Thanks. We've had a couple of challenges with internet and so forth, getting the remote hams reliable, but it's been up now for several months. Anybody that is interested in finding out about it, on our website is a link to the presentation that I did last year with all the materials, or either that or call me or email me.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, guys.
I see we've got a stranger here, Mason Matrazzo. Come up here a minute. I call him a stranger. He's not a stranger, but he doesn't always attend the club meetings. How you doing? Mason, I don't know how many of you were at field day. I think most of you were at field day. We were 9th overall in North America. And we were in Class 9A. We operated Class 9A. We were 2nd in North America. And part of we make points, as you know, we make points in different ways. One of the ways we make points is making contacts. Well, Mason here made 25% of our contacts. That was 20 meters sideband, and Mason didn't get up to eat. I think Caroline brought him a hot dog, and Mason operated for 24 hours straight. And I think he got up twice to run to the bathroom. But anyway, Mason, we want to present you with the Forsyth County Amateur Radio Club Field Day 2019 Ironman Award. We really appreciate it. So look forward to seeing you in June.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Oh.
Not good.
We appreciate Mason. He couldn't be at the Christmas dinner. He was in Guatemala on a mission trip. We appreciate Mason. If you weren't at the Christmas dinner, Stacy MacArthur was Ham of the Year for all of the work that Stacy's done. And Harold Richardson received a Lifetime Achievement Award because Harold lives, breathes, and eats W4NC. And we appreciate all these folks. Okay. Kent is not here tonight, so we will not have a treasurer's report. Like I say, I think we made about 600 on the Ham Fest, so I don't know exactly where that leaves us, but Kent will hopefully be back next meeting. Harlan, you want to give us your Aries OPSCOM report?
I do. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. We had a great year last year. We spent a tremendous number of man hours, well over 3,000 man hours in OXCOM Aries events. This year's going to be just as much fun, if not more so. We actually have multiple events coming up very shortly. So break out your pens and your paper. April 4th. Those of you that went to Hanging Rock last year for that event, that's April 4th this year, we are going to need about a dozen to 15 folks. And we're going to be putting you in the field. It's Hanging Rock. You're going to be up in the mountains. We worked Simplex last year. It worked very well. We're going to do the same this year. They're expecting 600 to 800 hikers for the event. It's very important that we're out there to support that. Following that, 2 weekends past that, the 18th of April, over at Veterans Park, we need about a half a dozen folks there. MS Society is holding a 10K walk in Veterans Park. We'll support that as well. Got notified today that the city of Kernersville has completed their last touch of their installation for us in their emergency operations center. There will be a dual band antenna and a place for us to go in and set up in Kernersville to assist them in communications throughout the county or with the county EOC if necessary. They're doing that on the town's nickel. We talked to them. They're doing the installation. I'm going over tomorrow morning to inspect it. And we'll probably test it out sometime next week. So that's a good thing. We're trying to get Clemens and Louisville and a couple others to do the same. September, Tour to Tanglewood. Last year we fielded about 40 people. That's you guys. Who went to Tanglewood last year? You guys did a great job. We were able to provide law enforcement with the best communications they've had in years, the best information as to what's out there, what's going on. We want to continue that tradition this year and even up the game if we can. That is September 12th and 13th.
That's early.
Yes. And that was done because we had to swap with Wilmington due to a different event that Wilmington was having. And so they couldn't go early, so we went early, they're going late. Which actually might help us. Because it's hurricane season, who knows?
Yeah, but it's also going to maybe be hotter too.
Remember, last year they got canceled because of Hurricane Dorian. Of course, I was in Durham for Hurricane Dorian playing with the state. And all for 8 days. That was fun. All right, speaking of, we did awards earlier tonight. I didn't make the Ham Fest because I was down in Charlotte. The MS Society had a national seminar down there in which in where we were provided a award. This is the MS Society Outstanding Group of the Year, Tour to Tanglewood, Ham and Sags. This is your award. This is what you guys did last year. Okay. This was handed to me by the chairman of the board, for the MS Society. That's how important they look at our contribution. He talked for 10 minutes about what we do and how we do it and how critical we are to that type of an operation and how they couldn't function and do it unless we were there. The Tour de Tanglewood event, just that ride for that weekend was $810,000, just a touch over that. That's a lot of money for a weekend, a little bit of effort from us for 2 days. So thank you guys. Everybody gets a round of applause to yourself. Very good. That's it. I hope to see everybody or hear everybody on the air Thursday night for the Oxcom at 8:30. Be there.
Thank you, Harlan. Dale, you want to give us a testing and repeater report?
Thank you. I'll steal Harlan's line. Happy New Year, everybody. Haven't seen a lot of you since the first of the year. For testing, again, we have Joe, John, and Joseph that were here a little bit earlier. We had 6 registered, but I think most of the folks are taking advantage of the weather, so I expect we'll probably have more folks next month. And again, the VEs that were here, once again, we outnumbered everybody, so thank you for being here. I won't ask you to stand up this time, but we appreciate you taking the time to be here, otherwise we wouldn't have a program. Switching over to the repeaters, 2 of the repeaters are up. The 4.7 has been doing okay, although with some of the winds we've had up on the mountain, there's been some crackling on some of the activities we've had during the vagabond net. So if you hear something during a normal weather day, where some folks, Mike, I think a little while back, 2 or 3 in the morning, he was rag chewing down there, and they had some interference. So not sure if there's some work being done on the mountain at the TV site, but if there is, and we get a time pattern, we can maybe figure out what it is and try to correct that. So 4.7 on the mountain's doing okay. 6.4 is all right. There's still some interference up there, so this year we plan on getting that solved. The same interference is affecting the 444.275 machine, which is not up right now because last time it was up there, it was a full scale on the input. Echolink has been okay on the 4.7. I'm sorry, link to the, where's Jerry? This 315 machine, thank you, Jerry, which we could use for the nets. The 6.4 Echolink back here. I think the server's down, the sound card's out, so I'll see if there's a spare PC at home to go ahead and fix that and bring it in, and then we can get the other Echolink back up and running. So are there any questions at this point in time on repeaters? Okay, thank you, folks.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Well, tonight is show and tell, and it is time to begin. Who wants to be first? Don?
Cut the projector off. I had this at the Hamfest and answered an awful lot of questions about it, so I thought I'd bring it. Basically, it's a whistle. Air goes in, blows around, comes out. But this is an RF whistle. This is called, this little part up here at the top, helical resonator. The reason I built this was I needed to listen to some jamming that was going on my test equipment. It'll tune anything, but it's like some of these cheap software-defined receivers. If you don't have filtering in the front, the loudest thing is just going to blow it out. So I made this little unit here, and the old school method, and I'm old enough that I've done this. Look up helical resonators. There's a bunch of formulas, and it's pages of math. I built a 4-element one that was put into production, and I can tell you, and somebody, another engineer called me about 5-6 years ago about this. And the bottom line is you do what it says, and then you're going to spend days fixing why it doesn't work just right. The new school method is to, you go online, and I hate my mouse quit, I have to use this pad. This software called Helical, You enter the frequency you want, you enter the bandwidth you want. I'm using 2 coils, passband ripple, which we can talk for a long time about that. 0 is you're not going to get that. But you can put that 50 ohms impedance in, the resonator, and then for graphing you put frequencies here. And you just enter that information, and come on, where's the mouse? Yeah, I couldn't see it over here. And that's what you do. Tells you there's a tap on the coil here. You have to make the coil, and when it says these dimensions, it means exactly these dimensions. It is very fussy. I got the closest I could, which was 14 gauge wire. I think I may have adjusted this a little bit to get it there, impedance wise. And then you tap it, and then it's like 2 whistles. There's a little hole here where it goes into the second one. So you'll see one, and then the, well, one, and then the other. And so there's going to be some ripple. And I think the, if you have parts, you're never going to find these exact parts, but that's, because when it gives you those numbers, even if you have those numbers, are stray impedances and everything, and then plot it. And this software has all those plots, and the spectrum analyzer over here is running this. I have a picture of it. I can't put the spectrum analyzer up here. And you'll see the 2 peaks. When I first made it, the generator's running at -20, so there's 3.6 dB. It should be like 1.5 dB. First off, you're never going to get that. Secondly, this is not silver plated, it's just copper. If you know about RF, they talk about stent effect, and this frequency is very thin. And this is just circuit board and 2 coils and the tap. And I put some brass screws with a little bit of copper plate at the top so I could tune it a little bit easily. That little bit of capacitance will change the tuning, and you can play with it. You can run your finger across these and see it all go crazy. And with the cover on, it's closer to what it is. When I first made it, it was about 1.8 dB. Now it is, because it's about 3 years old and copper doesn't age well, because it gets that oxide on it, now it's about 3.5 dB. But that's it. I thought I would just bring that and show it. I used that, put it on the communications monitor, and then I had to follow with a couple of little amplifiers, and those boards are here. Those are absolutely marvelous little circuits. The microwave ICs, there are 4 leads on them. An input, you need a blocking capacitor, you need an output blocking capacitor, you need a resistor to feed it. And I have some circuit boards made up just for that. And they're like 1 dB of noise and 20 dB of gain. 3 of them are stupid. You can't just run that much gain. But this worked great, except for downtown on Winston-Salem, there is a paging repeater. I don't know who uses a pager today, but there's still one running. It's running 0.5 kilowatt, and it's got at least a 9 dB gain antenna on it, and it's loud. And I had to stick a little notch on there, which is just a coil with a capacitor, and it'll suck out about 30 dBs. But I just brought that for show and tell, just to say. The point is, a lot of this stuff that was so hard to do years ago, there's a software program out there for it. And it's amazing, and it's really easy to use. And you don't have to do the math. That's it. Van, you want to go next? Sure. Okay.
I got the idea for
building this project at a Hamfest. And people there had built a project they called a ammo can. Basically, it's an ammo can that you buy. Oh my goodness, okay. It's an ammo can that you buy, a military style ammo can. And you basically install your radio in it. It's a nice storage piece. And
You speak up.
Louder,
Can't hear you.
man.
You're talking over there and
Okay.
they're not hearing you.
all the equipment that you use to make the radio work is stored neatly inside here. So when it comes time to go and put it together, you just pull out the cables, make your connections, put it in operation. Wanted a little flexibility with this one. I typically operate it like this on my shack in between times, so I don't get out of practice using the radio. And I use the antenna that's on top of my house on a regular basis, but when I go mobile, I'll use this little thing. This is a tri-band radio actually, and it will work off of 110 volts if you want to plug it in. Don, you mind if I unplug?
No, just go ahead and unplug.
Okay. Put that in, and it brings up the voltage here. There is a 12 volt socket here for accessories, and then two USB ports down here for charging your cell phone or whatever you want to do with it. Just plug in. While you're operating, you can bring your phone up to standard charge on it, so it worked for a long period of time. I thought about this project when I was operating from a school during a winter storm, and just having it in a very rugged case, something that's shielded, has its own power supply. I can look right there and see what I'm doing. These little radios are dirt cheap.
What's the radio?
It is a something or other. It's a TYT variety of radio. It puts out 20 watts or 25 watts, and that is all it will do. But it will work on 2 meters, 440 or 220. That's just a radio. I brought it as close as I could bring it to the front so I could see the front panel. And then with this KC4WSK, we're down in the basement, so it's not gonna work down here, I know, but.
It was wishful thinking.
Huh?
It was wishful thinking.
Well, I wasn't gonna do it illegally anyway.
Hold it up, man.
Excuse me?
Hold it up so we can see it back here.
Wanting it to be very flexible, I do a little disaster relief work as well. I wanted it to be a little more flexible when I was en route and didn't have 110 volts to plug it in. So I made cables to go to just a battery I kept there at the shack, and you can just plug this in. I could plug it in right now, but I was worried I would have the power supply on and feeding it into the battery over here, so I put in a relay in between. So anytime the power supply has voltage, it picks a relay up. That was Steve's idea. Thank you, Steve. And it disconnects this from putting it on the bus. It actually is all on a bus here that's hooked up with the connectors like we all use on our power supplies nowadays. But I wanted to be able to use it as well en route. A lot of times when I go on disaster, I'm en route and needing to use the radios. And so I bought a little power supply at Harbor Freight that has a 6 amp output, and that's plenty for running this radio. Just turn it on, and with nothing hooked to it right now for power, I can just plug this in, and I'm back up in operation. And it will sit there and run. I run it for 3 or 4 hours at a time like this, not transmitting the entire count, of course, but you still got your voltage readout there, and it still will transmit as it's supposed to. Once again, I'll do it KC4WSK testing. Nothing, but I typically run it on 20 watts. 20 or 25, I figured 25 was pushing that one little amplifier that's inside there quite a bit, so I just run it down on the lower power, so I'm not gonna get it all too heated up. If I was transmitting for a long period of time, it has a thermally switched fan circuit within the radio, which blows that hot air back here on the power supply. But it's moving air, so it's, you know, it's hopefully a help more than a hindrance. But that's it. It's just a portable radio that's in a fairly rugged case. And as Harlan and I were talking on the way over tonight, by it being in a metallized case, I can store it. And these little mounting bolts over here that hold the radio up, I can just clip onto with a good ground and hopefully keep it from taking too much of a hit if an EMP or some sort of large signal might normally take that out. They recommend putting them inside of a metal can. Well, it's in a metal can, and grounding it. So there you go. The radio hopefully is protected, except for something that would hit it to the outside here.
Plus you got a ground plane for your antenna.
I do. It's minimal, so you know I'd rather be able to find a nice metal plate somewhere, you know, and just stick it on there. But it's one of those nice little, really tough magnets that's it'll stick about anywhere on a good ferrous metal plate. Good metal. Yeah, here might work. If you
Horizontal.
somewhere horizontal. And if any of you've ever tried to make that make some sense on 2 meters, I want to see it. I've operated horizontal at a 45 vertical, and it works just fine. Any orientation I've ever stuck it in, just much like your handheld will. That's it. I can run it off of battery here, battery plugged in on the bus here, or the 110 volt power over there, and it just works. If you hear me on Thursday night, I'll be talking to this radio.
That's the square.
Man, if you would, if you could leave this up here on.
Yeah, leave it on the table, Van, because Don will take a picture of it.
That way,
Keep an eye on it.
folks may want to look at it closely when they, you know, later on when we get up, we're up and about. Who's next, Bob?
Here's Bob.
Just slide this forward, you'll be,
My little gadget is, along the same lines as, things that same purpose. A little different way of going about it. Who I have to do credit for, was he at Bryce, or Bruce? AD4 ET. He was here earlier, I see. He had a similar arrangement last year, and I took a liking to it, so I went and built one too, put my own twist to it. Mary, my wife, did the fine job of making a nice cover for it. And this is the guy here. This can go about, I have it turned down, but about 30 watts. And it's, normally I run this out in the field days and things of that nature, different races and whatnot. I run it with, I have a solar power supply that I run it with. It's Wagon 1500. It's AC and DC both output, and with panels that flip out. And so I have, I like to run it about as far away. I like to sit under a tree where it's cool in the summertime, and that doesn't work good with a solar power supply, so I put it pretty far away. And so I have about a 50-foot wire here, cable, that fits in here. and that's for my DC, and that goes to my solar power supply. I also have an AC cord here, 60 cycles, so I can run it off 60 cycles also. And for, it has a speaker, an SWR meter, speaker, power meter. Over here I have, it's a module that will shut the radio off. I have it set for 11.5 volts because I've known people that, I have a friend here, I think a couple of years ago at the tour of Tanglewood down by the lake, he ran his car battery down. So I have this set up so they just shut it off in case I'm using a car or something of that nature. I try to make it as versatile as I can get it. And with this cable, I've converted just about everything I own to power pole type connectors. And so I can intermix stuff all over the place. So I got this little cable here to clip on the battery terminals. This one here, I have one way I can hook up with big old clips, alligator clips. And this one is I have a short one here instead of on reel and that big long cord, just for demonstration purposes. And what I also have, because I put my solar power supply sometimes pretty far away, out in the sun, when I flip open the solar panels, I build a little metering device where I can keep an eye on what's going on with my solar power unit. Because I'm getting old, I can't see that far. Can't see the meter on the front of it. So, and I brought this power supply along. This is to simulate the battery. I didn't feel like dragging my solar unit in here. It weighs 120 pounds, and I was thinking about taking a battery in my lawnmower. I could do that. I'll take this. So, that's for all intents tonight, that's a battery, and it just monitors the voltage and the current of the radio. I don't always use that, depends what I'm using. And, somewhere I had another cord. Well, again, I brought this rather than on reel and all this wire here tonight. Speed things up. So, we're
You awake?
I am now.
that's AC, and I can turn it off and run it off. Couple of flicks of the switch. Run off DC, and I didn't bring any of my antennas, so we'll just screw this. And of course, this is all made out of PVC pipe. I painted it so it wouldn't look like PVC pipe. And you can see it transmitting there into the dummy load. PVC pipe, the shelves are made out of cutting boards I got at Walmart. All the hardware I use is stainless steel because I don't like things to rust. And I didn't glue any joints. so I can take it apart and extend the height, extend the width, whatever I wanna do. A couple of reasons. Number one, so I can modify it. Number two, I don't like glue. And, number three, I don't like rust, so everything's stainless steel. And I have spare fuses here. I mean, how many times have people been out in the woods somewhere and blew a fuse? You know, I'd give a fortune for a fuse. So I carry spares. And if I run off battery this week, I can unplug that, and that kills the light on. Saves me a little more electricity. That's about it. Thank you.
Somehow I have a hankering to get on the air. Bob and Van going portable here.
Well, you know, it's, when I got into amateur radio back in 1961, I better be careful what I say here in this group, but I like to build stuff. I'd rather build than talk.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you wanted to get on the air, you had to build something. Well, my first transmitter was a couple 6146s, you know, and the second one was 4 CX250s. And that was fun.
Moved up quick.
Yeah, well, I had excess. Let's just put it that way. But now it's hard to build stuff, you know. First of all, I'm going blind. I can't see the dog. Tiny wire. Parts.
Yeah, that's great. Who's next?
I'll go with mine, that way we keep
Okay.
it trending.
Awesome kits that they had at all, two different sizes that work for econ. Of course, most of us, what do we do when we go out for econ? When we're called out in the field to do communications, what do we take? An HT. How well does an HT work? Not really that well. Okay? Works well if you're under the repeater. It doesn't work worth a darn if you're 35 miles away in a valley or in a building. These kits work well. And those are made for portability and to go around. The kit I have is a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier. Mine's more designed towards a command post operation, or to jump into an EOC and actually fire it up. I will not pick it up because it weighs about 30 pounds. And it's awkward. But you're more than willing to look at it up here. What's in it? There are currently 2 dual band radios in it. One of them is a Fusion digital capable radio. The other is an older Elenco. It's got a full 30 amp power supply that does put out exactly 30 amps. It's continuous duty at 30. Both radios can be used simultaneously at about 17.5 amps. So again, leaning towards the command post, multiple frequency use. Everything connects from the back. Everything's stored into the case. The case is waterproof. So anywhere we go, if it gets stuck out, we're in the middle of pouring rain, we're pulling gear out of the vehicle, I don't have to worry about this. It's watertight. Doesn't mean you can submerge it, but don't have to worry about the radios getting wet. Very good for single operator, dual operator, and all. We've used it multiple times. In fact, they used it at Hamfest this weekend as a talk-in radio. So anybody that talked to them, you got a chance to hear what the clarity is on the radio system. It's very easy to set up. It takes a matter of minutes, just like these do. This is one of 3 kits that I have. This one here is strictly for basically 2 meters and 440. Although I'm going to take the Elenco out and put a quad band in it, a Yaesu quad band. I have another one that I'm in the process of finalizing, and it is HF capable, same size box. And then a third one that I'm completing has aircraft capabilities and Viper system capable radios in it, and all because of what I do with the county. And so the idea being that all 3 of these kits all match. The boxes match. It's great for a command post to think about walking into a remote command post, into a disaster. walking into, if we have a wildfire situation, that we're called in as an Oxcom group to go help provide additional communications. I can walk in there and stack all 3 boxes on top of each other. And we can function. We got one set anywhere we go. So that's what that's for. I don't have to worry about it. It's a very stout box. It'll take a heck of a hit. You'll have to run over this thing to crush it. Like I said, it does weigh a little bit, so, and it is awkward because all the weight is forward part of the box as opposed to the aft part. So it's a little out of balance, but it still works. Anybody wants to see it can. I'm not going to fire it up. We can if we want to, but I have no problem doing that. Welcome anybody to play with it later. Thank you.
What's that, Jared?
I said, I got one thing.
Okay, come on. Sure,
I will. I'll make it quick, so we don't have to run the meeting wide open. Looks like I need to tie my shoes too.
Harlan, put it in my truck.
All right.
I'll see what it does.
I'll do this quickly.
I said, put it in my truck and I'll see if I can break it.
After he runs over to the mailbox.
Let me find a mailbox.
Wait, the mailbag, yeah. Everybody knows what this is, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you don't, it's a computer power supply. These are cheap. They're $5 at Goodwill, and just about everybody's got one sitting in a closet somewhere. So why would you pay $100 for a power supply for your nice 2-meter radio when you got one sitting in the closet? So what I did was, and I took this apart, and I'll show you how to do this. It's really simple to make these, but I have 2 or 3 of them that I've used for years. This one has a noise filter on the front of it, and it is, well, let's see if I got an AC cord here. If I don't short out these 2 wires on the front, you'll see it go up in smoke. But also, speaking of smoke, what happens to your radio when your Astron power supply shorts out? Anybody know what happens when the pass transistor goes out? You lose the radio. That's why do you lose the radio? Because the voltage goes from 12, 13 to 24 instantly. So the radio doesn't smoke. When these go out, they just die. That's it. They blow a fuse inside or whatever. But these are good. This particular one's good for 30 amps. This will run a low band radio, full 100 watts, right off the bat. Hey.
Plug it in here?
Yep, I can plug it in right here. And I got a switch on the front with a cute little LED, and the fan is running, and my wires are apart, thank goodness. But this one has a noise filter built in. What's inside the noise filter is usually 3 capacitors and a choke. The choke is about $1. 3 capacitors, why 3? One of them is 3,300 microfarads. It's usually good to smooth out the DC, to take the AC ripple out to 60 hertz. The .01 is used to take the audio or the 60 hertz hum out of the wires. And the little .001 to ground is to take the RF that you might transmit back out of the DC line. Now, these put out 12 volts, or you can make them so they put out 5 volts or other voltages, but these things work really well. They're just cheap and easy to make. You can put a little hole in there, put a switch on them. Some come with a switch on them. And I've got one more that one's good for 30. This one's good for about 20 amps, even though it's bigger, who knows why. But it has a switch on the back of it already, so I just used the switch that was already there. You don't need that. Now, what's on the switch and why do you need that? These things have a tremendous amount of wires on them. So what do you do with these? And how do you make this? If I can figure out how to get it apart. This one actually it's plugged into this 12-volt fan right here, which I think I broke the wire off of. But anyway, I just ripped this out of the junk box. It's still nasty inside. took it out of a computer. So basically what you do is you cut off, you know, these things come with a lot of wires on them. You cut all the wires off, all of them. Just, I put a little piece of heat shrink around this so you can see what you cut off. But you leave basically 2 sets. These are about 6 of the black wires, and these orange wires are 12 volts. The yellow wires are 5, and all these other little purple colors and everything you don't need. You only need this one, this green. Green means go. So the go switch, or the switch for the AC, or the, you know, cut this thing on, make it work. Because what you'll find is if you don't put if it doesn't have a switch on it, like this one does not, most time the computer has a button on the front. And that grounds this green wire here. It just grounds it to the case or grounds it to one of these black wires to make this come on. The rest of it is just putting a red instead of orange and black ground. And that's it. That's a power supply. This one's good for 8 amps. You can look at the wattage on the back. If it's 300 watts or more, it's good for around 30 amps. This one's good for 145, which is about 8 amps at 12 volts. Now, they put out 12 volts, not 13.8. So in most of these, there's a little adjustment. You can see it in here. It's a little screwdriver adjustment. You can turn that up. So you set that at 13.8 volts, and you got a nice power supply.
Regulated.
So,
Regulated too.
yeah, regulated, well regulated. So anyway, that's my project.
Okay, who's next?
I can go.
Okay, come on up.
Let's turn the clocks back. There's nobody in this room as old as this ring. It was a 1924 Atwater Kent. Okay. It's a 1924 Atwater Kent. It's an eBay special. I picked it up off of eBay. I paid about $60 for it. And the case was, the wood was really nice, but the rest was pretty much a train wreck. I had to completely disassemble it, pull the whole thing apart, and restore everything, repaint all the metal chassis and all that. So I just finished it up, so I thought I'd bring it in and show it to you. It's I've got the now this was 1924. Most homes, Sylvania, has the leaf on top. Those are rare.
What is it?
The Sylvania tubes
Uh-huh.
has a little paper leaf on top. Most of the tubes are long gone. Yeah, they are.
Does it work?
Yeah, yes, it works. I've played it. I've got a speaker coming for it. They were designed to drive a high impedance. Basically, what they were designed for is to drive a high impedance headphone element. So what they did was they took that little element, stuck it in the bottom of on the bottom of a horn, and then came up in the big bell, and that's how it amplified it. Okay, these were pre-super heterodyne. It's a TRF is what it's called, and basically it's you got two RF stages, a detector, and 2 amplifiers, and you have to tune each section. So to tune a station, these kind of follow each other, but you have to tune all 3 to pull in a station, which made it kind of interesting. And then the RF gain and the volume are controlled by a couple of rheostats that actually adjust the filament voltage. Yeah, so very low tech, but they actually work. And,
It's only 96 years old.
yeah, 96 years old, and okay, most homes didn't have.
Drop it down.
He's got one just like
I got one just like it.
I was gonna say,
Drop it,
you
I'm
didn't
coming
want
after
that
it.
at all.
And I have to speak.
He's got a speaker. I got one coming. Most homes didn't have electricity, so these ran off battery. and a number of batteries. So I can imagine the little kid who fooled with Dad's radio and left it on all night, and ran the batteries dead.
Deep trouble.
But, yeah, most homes didn't have electricity. The ones that did, pretty much just some lights strung on the ceiling.
With a
A
tube.
couple of years later, they made these with an adapter that would plug into those light bulb sockets, so you could run them off the house AC. So, yeah, it's fun stuff.
That's cool.
A lot of fun stuff.
Did it work when you got it, or?
It was a train wreck when I got it. Four scotches were bad.
It looks neat.
So it was a complete disassembly all the way. And rebuilt it back. The cable has been replaced. This is not the original spaghetti cable. The original one was all oxidized and brittle to the point where it just breaks. So
Are those 4-pin tubes?
those are 4-pin in a solid brass socket.
I remember out of Stromberg Carlson.
Yeah, the quality that Atwater Kent put into them, it's an interesting story. If you like nostalgia and old radios, Google Atwater Kent and take a look at the history of that company and the guy. It's pretty interesting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Steve?
Well, you took us back in time, I'm gonna go down. Future. This is not a full project. It's a problem I had with a cutting board that you've seen many times. My problem is I have an Arduino Nano, Arduino Uno, Arduino Mega, and an ESP32. Each one is fed with a little USB plug into my computer. And I was always losing the cables because these two take the old, was it B type? D. But this is a micro and this is a mini, all different plugs. And I'm trying to find the cable and plug it into I only have so many ports in the computer anyway. So I came up and what I decided to do was get one cable each, put it into a USB hub. I found the switchable one. Did you say you had some power?
Yeah, I get some power here.
And it does have a cable, which I didn't bring. It's still in the bundle on the workbench. And so I can just plug one cable into my processor or my laptop. And then if I want to use the Nano, I just turn it on. Or if I want to use, I can turn them all on and use my computer to select which one I want. However, once you program them, if you're familiar with these, once you put the program in, you don't need your laptop unless you're serially linked to it. So I can actually put the program in here and actually use the, let me get rid of them. Say use this one and power it up with the hub. So it's not a new project, still got dust on it, but the new thing was now I don't have to go looking for my cables. Certainly there's no
You can use one to program the other.
Oh,
Amazon.
Amazon.
But it's
Where else do you find this stuff? It's a,
They make a real nice 7-port, 3.5 amp powered hub. Just like that.
With the individual switches.
Your individual switches, and Amazon, you just go look for powered hubs.
Well, I've seen plenty of powered hubs, but I haven't seen one with the individual switches on.
And it's
I
about
saw them in
39
movies.
bucks.
Is there anyone else? Bobby, are you,
Since
I see you've got
it's strictly
something.
limited to radio, I brought this just in case this would be appropriate. This year I've been trying to learn how to do 3D printing with access temporary to a printer and Lon Cecil and others' expertise to help. Now, so, a couple things. Chess set. Not a pattern, but learning how to do relatively fine manufacture. I say relatively because it's a 3D printer, it's still only about 400 microns. So, not all that precise. All right, one other thing though that was attempted, how many people here know what a Stirling engine is? Okay, good. How many people have built a Stirling engine before? One. Okay, good. Well, I'm not going to try getting this work because it takes a little finesse, but this was also made with a 3D printer. Now, a Stirling engine has the advantage that if you do it well enough, and this one isn't, the simple heat of your hand would be enough to set it running. Not with high power, but unlike most engines that you're familiar with, a Stirling engine actually gets more efficient as the temperature between hot and its cold surface get less and less. And with this one, it's just single phase. There's it's just a airtight cylinder with a manometer, a flywheel, and a means of moving a diaphragm inside the cylinder. So you might, if you see some old pictures of the Old West, by the way, 19th century, some of these were used to run farm equipment before farms were, before the thought of electrification was around. Okay. Now another thing, a little simpler. This, by the way, was essentially our own design. Started with a standard design, but had to tweak it enough to get it to work. And still interested in, don't have access to the 3D printer I had, but hoping to still get it and have one yet to build. Another useful piece. How many people would guess what this is?
Lazy Susan?
Pardon me? No, it's not Lazy Susan. Okay, it's a slide rule. This is a slide rule intended originally, it's a little too large for calculating fuel mileage. Fits over, the smaller version of it fits over the fuel port in the car, so it's handy. You open up the car, you put the gas in, you have a slide rule there to calculate your fuel mileage. So, now one thing I've been playing with more recently is trying to trying to deal with a new cell phone. So so going forward, if anybody here knows Android expertise, I'd appreciate your assistance. Trying to reload a recently unbricked, rooted Android. So anybody here, by show of hands, anybody here loaded? Good. Definitely want to talk to you about loading an Android.
What have I done?
Pardon me?
I said, what have I done?
Okay. So, by the way, I do have, if anybody wants to see it afterwards, I do have a movie of this thing running for about 3 seconds.
It's a half-hour movie.
Actually, it would be a lot longer than that if you took the time to tweak it.
Bobby, how long did it take to print the flywheel?
The flywheel actually wasn't that long. I think it was only about an hour or two. It was done on a rep wrap imitation. I think it was a Prusa I-200. So it's not very fast or very high resolution, but it was cheap.
That's a good quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the flywheel wasn't the problem. I can tell you what the problem was, though, was getting an airtight cylinder that is insulating with thermally conductive top and bottom, because the the whole point of this is that you have to have a surface that will convey heat above and cold below, or vice versa. And it has to be very, very airtight, because ideally, in order any expansion that doesn't translate into giving a little jolt to the flywheel is lost energy, and there's not much energy to lose.
How did you seal that?
It's actually just plain sealed by pressure, but that's what I'm saying. It took tweaking, quite a bit of it, to get this cylinder exactly the right size. It turns out that due to the 400 micron resolution of the printer and the fact that the standard software tends to pixelate images, it's very hard to get a round surface that will fit exactly. Took a lot of tweaking. Basically just kept trying, move a pixel here, move a pixel there, expanded a fraction of a degree. And when all the quantization came out, it came out with an airtight, something that was airtight enough that it would actually, the manometer could be seen to expand and contract by about 1/10 of a millimeter, just based on the warmth of my fist.
Thank you.
Bobby's a mad scientist.
That's correct. League of Mad Scientists, every fourth Saturday, Louisville Library, 3:15 today.
The chess pieces are still up here.
Oh.
Okay, is anyone else have anything?
I can go to fill time, please.
Yeah, come on.
Not too much, kind of piggyback off of Harlan and the other guys that got some go kits. Nothing terribly special, but I want to make sure that
Yeah, come on over.
I share it here.
Thank you.
Really, it's just 2 cheap plastic containers. You get them for like $10 if you go to the right place. But inside of it, it's just a basic foam and just a plain 2 meter. I used to have a Yaesu on it, but it's just a 2 meter radio on top of a power supply with Anderson power poles. So I got my I'm getting mixed up here. So I got my base station for quick going, and then I have my bin for mobile operation for my HT. So cables go in there, and base station right here, all in one little package. Pretty simple. That's all I gotta show. Anybody questions? I'll probably put it up here front so we can look at it.
Good ways to transport your gear.
Yeah, it's waterproof. You know, it's relatively cheap.
Where'd you get
Power
those?
poles everywhere. What's that?
Where'd you get those boxes?
Oh, I'd have to look it up. There was,
Don't make it Harbor
I think they're Harbor Freight. Yeah.
You're good at what I was thinking.
Right, you can store manuals on the top there, and you know everything you need. They did tip over weird, but you know, it's better than having wet gear. So I'll just put it up there. Everybody's got any questions?
I had to break the seal to get it open.
Where did Fearless Sam go?
He went to the bathroom. I think he was hoping for more. This is what Mr. Vice is supposed to take over.
Little note
Do we
on,
have anybody else?
I'll just add something, Don, on these, a lot of these projects, I was working on a power supply and I wanted to fuse it. I found on Amazon again, these, just a little link with a waterproof fuse case in it that, you know, you get 5 of them for like $8 or $9. So, you can add a fuse to your project real easy, and they take these little, what do they call them, bladed fuses?
Oh, the
now?
automotive?
Yeah, the automotive fuses, but it's like a rubber cover, just inline fuse.
You can get them in the 20 or 30 amp capacity.
Okay, is there anyone else? Well, we've had a lot of good presentations tonight. I want everybody to please remember the business meeting is a week from tonight. Meet at 6:30. We eat at 66 Pizza off of Stratford Road near Academy Sports. It's a really good time, eat together, and then have the business meeting. Does anyone have anything else tonight? If not, do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.